we're live. Welcome to an Equilume Live Q&A. We have got 3 exceptional guests that will be answering your questions over the next 30 minutes or so. We are going to be talking about the use of Equilume performance lighting, all about enhancing the health, the performance, and basically the overall well-being of both performance and leisure horses as well. And I'm going to introduce my guests. I've got 2 5-star event riders in Sam Watson and Philip Dutton, but also Dr. Barbara Murphy, who is Head of Equine Science at the University College of Dublin. And Barbara, I'm going to come to you first before we're going to just dive straight into some of the questions that we've been sent. For anybody that isn't familiar with Equilume, and I appreciate that we have got a much more detailed webinar that I'll give people details on in just a moment, but just give us a little overview to introduce people to what it is and how it can help them.
Hi, Nicole, no problem. So basically, we need light to be able to see, but we need light also to keep our body clocks in synchrony with the environment. So we need light for vision and for rhythm. And what we try to have done what we've done at Equilume is developed ways of providing biologically effective light to horses, whether they are at home in their stables, on their way to shows, or while competing away from home. And the key to that is that biologically effective light is high in blue light by day, allowing them to be alert and keeping their body clocks ticking with the environment, and then providing red light or darkness at night so that they get good rest. And when you combine these aspects of light, it strengthens the animal's circadian rhythms, so they behave better, their mood is better, and their body works better so they can perform at their top level.
That was very succinctly put, because I know there is so much more to it. And that webinar, the details are on your screen if you would like to go and watch it. It is free to watch, and it features all 4 of us, but also Liz Halliday-Sharp as well. And there is lots more information in there. And if you've got any more questions that aren't answered in there and aren't answered this evening, then just go to equilume.com and you'll be able to get in touch with the team, and they'll all be able to help you. But this is all about answering your questions. So don't be shy. If you've got any questions, they can be related to Equilume, or they could just be questions that you would like to put to the team. Then send them in. We will be going through some of the comments a little bit later on, and we will do our best to get through as many as possible. But I'm going to start with a few that have been sent in to us prior to us filming this. And I'm going to start with this one. So, do the Equilume lights really influence behavior? And I'm going to come first to you, Philip.
Thanks, Nicole. Great to be on here. Well, the simple answer is yes, I believe they do, and from my experience, and I've been a big convert to them, and certainly you see a difference virtually in a few weeks, in my experience, certainly with the shine in the coat and just the general outlook of the horses. But in generally, I think the horses are more settled and just enjoy life a little bit more and seem healthier. So I definitely would say that I've seen a difference in every horse.
You've seen a difference in every horse in your yard. Sam, how about you? Because I know you've had some real sort of differences in your team from the horses that have kind of been generally a little bit more lazy in their work to those that actually are a bit more buzzy, but they've had an effect on both of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like me, Nicole. I mean, if I don't get a good night's sleep, I can either be tired and lethargic, or I can be quite edgy and grumpy. You know, it's different responses to really the same problem, which is trying to get that quality of rest really good, and then trying to stimulate the body, trying to get the body really firing and working, and that muscle repair going on and all that sort of stuff. And Imperial Sky's definitely been one who can kind of live life a little bit in the slow lane, and by getting him better night's sleep, better recovery, and then just feeling a little bit more energized during the day, he's been working really well. And what I've really enjoyed is you see some of these effects coming through in a really short space of time, but having been on them now for over a year, my horses are turning into bodybuilders, which is great. The muscle, and that's what we're always trying to do. And of course, that's a combination of hopefully I'm working them right, feeding them right, but getting that I think it's both. I love talking about stress and rest, but like anything, you know, like plants need light to grow. We need light to be feeling at our best as well. It's just such a natural and logical thing to be getting right. And certainly here in Ireland at this time of year, we have long winters. We know it affects us as humans, so it's been fantastic to get them in.
Yeah, absolutely. Barbara, for anybody that isn't familiar, just give us a bit of an overview on the different products that are available in terms of the casual light mask, but also the lights that are available for use in barns and yards and stables as well.
Well, we started off developing a mobile light mask to be able to provide blue light directly to the horse's head wherever he went. So there's three types of light mask. There are the casual, which is specifically directed at competition horses and sport horses, because the blue light comes on at 8 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. So it gives them that long summer day length wherever they are. So we often have them in stables that maybe, you know, you're not going to change your whole lighting straight away, but they're also traveling and they're walking in and out of dark horse boxes. They are at competition barns, and the casual mask allows them to have that light all day. The other masks were primarily developed for grazing horses and for our breeding stock, so that the light comes on at dusk and just extends their day so that they don't have to come in at night. And then for the kind of the best of both worlds is when you put the stable light into your stables, because that's not all that's more than just the blue light by day, but it transitions at dawn and dusk. So instead of having abrupt wake up when the lights go on in the barn in the morning, it gradually comes up, and the same in the afternoon. In the evening, it will dim down slowly to a low intensity red light. And this red light allows them and stimulates them to rest and recover more. And it also means that we don't interrupt them when we need to check on them at night by putting on a white light, which is very bad, like it is for us humans. We don't want to put on bright white lights. You don't want to look at your screens when you go to bed at night. It keeps you awake. And just to kind of go back to the behavior comment, how people are seeing differences in their behavior, it's just like humans. On a bright sunny day, your mood is lifted. And it's why a lot of people will look at white light therapy and blue light therapy to alleviate the effects of seasonal affective disorder. So it has a direct effect on the parts of the brain that regulate mood.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. And as I say, everything that we talk about on here, equilume.com, if you want more information, go and visit the website. Philip, I'm gonna come to you now and just ask, in terms of how soon you saw an effect in your horses. Obviously, I know you've used them on a range of horses. Did that sort of time frame differ in terms of different horses? How soon did you see an effect?
Within 2 weeks, I saw a difference, and I was most of the people had told me it'll take up to, but it'll take about 3 weeks to show some effect. So I was pleasantly surprised it was before that especially the more highly strung horses, I definitely saw a difference in those guys, that they were a little bit more chilled out, a little bit more mellow about their whole daily life. So I think, once, certainly it's not going to be overnight, but it's not months and months either. So after a few weeks, I think you'll definitely see, or I have definitely seen a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I know, Barbara, you say up to 6 weeks. Liz, when she was on the webinar, said that on one of her horses, almost immediately, she noticed a difference as well. Barbara, is there such a thing as giving a horse too much light?
Yes, just like us. I mean, you can't have lights on 24 hours a day. Optimally, you need a down period at nighttime. You need to have 6 to 8 hours of darkness or red light, because we have an internal rhythm, and everything in our body was designed to follow the light and dark cycles of our planet as the sun comes up and goes down. So it's not optimum to keep lights on all the time, because what happens is it causes our internal rhythms to flatline when they need to have a rise and fall. Particularly one of the most important hormones, which is melatonin, it needs darkness or red light to rise in its production levels at nighttime. And it's a crucially important hormone for recovery and muscle regeneration and repair. And it's very important part of our immune response. So having, just like when people get jet lagged and they travel across time zones, their rhythms are disrupted and they often get sick or have a less immune response to be able to deal with it. So you can definitely give too much light. It's giving it in the right proportions on a rhythmical, regular basis.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's go for another question. Philip, I know you're going to have to dash off in a minute, but I'm going to come to you with another one now. And it is this one that's been sent in. I like the idea of all the benefits for horses, but I'm not sure if they would like wearing the mask. When you put it on your horses, did they mind it? What was the initial reaction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking that as well, but interestingly enough, it's done in a really, I don't know, a nice way for the horses, and they don't bother at all. And, you know, one of the horses I have it on is a sensitive, you know, hard to please kind of horse, and he accepts the casual halter very easily, and, you know, it's not an uncomfortable situation for him. It comes across as just being an everyday something that they're with, and it's not even, I don't even feel that they tolerate it. I don't think they sort of, they put up with it really well, and I haven't had any issue there at all.
That's really good to hear. Okay, so if you've got any questions, don't forget to send them in, either for Barbara, Sam, and Philip as well, who will be dashing off in just a second. Philip, we'll keep you for a couple of minutes. So if you've got any questions specifically for Philip, now is your chance. Here we go. Let's go for one live from somebody watching. So Esther Skelly Smith says, one of our clients asked why you did not include red light in the masks. Barbara, I'll come to you with that one.
Very good question. Well, the masks were designed so that instead of having red light at night, which not only has an effect directly on the brain, it has an effect on the entire body. So it's better when provided to be most effective. It's better when it's provided in the stable, so then it can stimulate the skin of the horse as well. But when we initially designed the mask, it was, of course, for mares that were outside. So when the light goes off at night, there's nobody going to disturb them. They naturally have darkness that is uninterrupted. So there was not a thought at the time to need to put in a red light into the mask. And, you know, you need to have, the idea of red light in the stables is to prevent you putting on a white light, so you don't need to interrupt them. But if you have a red light in the mask and they're in a stable, you still run the risk that someone will put on a white light and they'll get light on the other eye. So that kind of defeats the purpose. It's a really good question, but the red light works best when the entire environment that the horse is in has that dim red light, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you very much, Esther. I hope that answered your question. There we go. Right, Philip, one last question for you in terms of heading into 2021. What effect do you hope that the Equilume products will have on your team of horses, and obviously building up to what we hope will be an Olympic Games this summer?
You're on mute, Philip.
Oh, we'll try again. There we go.
Well, I just think that as a horse owner and lover and you know, trainer, you're always just trying to get your horses as healthy and, as Sam says, as fit as possible, and being able to work in a good mental way as well, so that they're, you know, enjoying their day, enjoying their work. And that's why I'm excited to be using the Equilume products, because it is a natural way of the horses, you know, behaving well and being fit and healthy. And so it's just one little extra sort of chink in your armor that you have. You know, certainly they've got to be ridden well and fed well and looked after well by your vet, etc., etc. But this is just another part of the whole puzzle that I think adds to your horse's health. And you know, so overall, it's just it does nothing but improve your performance and the way that your horse enjoys his day.
Yeah, absolutely. The happier your horse is, the healthier they are, the more they are going to be excelling at their job as well. Philip, we're going to let you go, but a big thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll hear more from you in the webinar. If you haven't seen it, go online to equilume.com. But we'll say goodbye to Philip for now. And then I will come to Sam Watson. Sam, thank you for waiting so patiently. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the effects that you've seen using the light mask in loading your horses.
Yeah, it was interesting when I think that question about how the horses feel about having the mask on. We had one that was just a little bit suspicious going into the horse box. It's a small space, it's a small dark space, to be honest. And loading was a conversation that could take quite a few minutes for him to kind of work out. Put the mask on because the thinking behind it was like, A, it's a small dark space in there, and B, just to bring some consistency in, and walk straight on. And actually travel better as well. But what I thought was quite telling was the fact that it was almost like a bit of relaxation to have the mask on, and I think it just makes it less like you're going into some kind of fearful unknown place. And I mean, sometimes we travel the horses at night, so we'd let them switch off and we wouldn't do that. But if we're doing a long journey, I mean, the back of a horse box is a dark environment to be in. And I would definitely, that's why we have the masks and we have the stable lights. We have boats and also then when we're stabling away from home at competitions, that we can keep the consistency there for the horses.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've got a question in now from Sarah Brayshaw, who has said, has anyone had any experience with Equilume with competing stallions, for example, helping to regulate hormonal-related behaviours? Recently tried it on a mare and wondered if it could benefit stallions likewise for performance. Sam, Barbara, either of you want to take it?
Well, I mean, my only a stallion, no, but with the brood mares, for sure, it's we had a foal on the 31st of January last year, which was, she was due right at the beginning of Feb, and you're worried that it could just, that could be prolonged a little bit because it doesn't feel like a natural time. She was a flat thoroughbred mare, and people want them foaling early in the year, and then to have her cycling again by the end of February after she had the foal to kind of have her next cover. It was it's been great because that just wouldn't be happening without them. I mean, we know from the past we can have mares that don't start cycling till the end of March, even if it's cold, sometimes April. So it's definitely been working from that point of view for us.
I'll briefly jump in there, Nicole. While I don't have any research results from using the lighting over competing stallions, we have done a lot of work with obviously installing these lights over breeding stallions, and some of the feedback and a common thing that we hear is that behavior has improved, or that horses that would be more kind of have stereotypical issues, or stallions that just don't do well to be stabled for long periods of time. We had one stallion in particular in France who had to be stabled during the winter months from having a very bad back issue. And they thought they'd try the blue light, like they'd heard, well, light helps humans who get very depressed, and this particular stallion used to get quite depressed. And they found amazing changes with just letting him have the blue light in his stable. We do know that it does increase testosterone levels. So in studies of sport horse stallions that are used for breeding, and they're also being exercised and competing at the same time, they found that they'd higher testosterone levels. Now, whether that also correlated with changes, I heard no negative effects on them having any more like behavioral issues, but they did have higher testosterone levels. And some people are afraid that mares are going to be in estrus earlier if they start using long daylight. And what it will do is the mare's reproductive cycle, you can't make it longer than it's destined to be in the year, but by using light, it will often start earlier, but it will also finish earlier in most cases. So you might shift it around a little bit, but the overall benefits on mood and behavior seem to override the hormonal effects on the reproductive cycle. So I don't know if that directly answers Sarah's question, but it's as close as I can get.
There we go. Sarah, hopefully there was something useful in there for you. And if you're watching this and you've got any questions for Barbara or for Sam, they can be Equilume related, or you could just be looking to pick their brains on something else entirely. Now is your chance to send them in. I'm going to go through a few more. Let's go for, here we go. Sam, I'll come to you on this one. Do the stable lights have any impact on the barn staff, and what is it like to work under them?
This is a really interesting one because Sparks has psoriasis, which is a horrible skin, thing to have, and can be quite aggressive and things like that. And whilst she just enjoyed being under the stable lights kind of in winter when she was wearing all her coats and stuff, it was interesting that in kind of April, May time, when working as hard as she does, even at kind of 5:30 in the morning, she would, start to take up, was wearing a t-shirt. Her skin started to pick up. So again, I'm always so wary of, little things like that. But it's, I think.
You mean you're skeptical, Sam? Skeptical.
I'm skeptical, Sam. I've been sleeping, Sam, for a long time, but skeptical, Sam. But no, you like the great thing about Equilume, this is a sign that this comes from science. This is, it's anything but, a kind of a gimmicky thing. Like this is as close to nature and as close to science as we can really get, and that's what attracted me to it. And I've always said that the most powerful thing I'll always work with is the body, whether it's the human body or the equine body. Their ability to repair, recover from injury, and it's the same with us. Our ability to heal and do all that. We just need to stimulate that process. We just need to stimulate the body and not let it shut down and go to sleep. So yes, the mood is definitely, it's really nice to go out there and not be in kind of gloomy conditions. But actually, it's like from a skin point of view, Spark started to really benefit from it that way as well, which was a real bonus.
People find it hard to believe how you can say one thing improves muscle tone and behavior and skin condition. But what we're doing is when light enters the eye, it stimulates receptors that go directly to the brain, to the master clock. And from there, the brain sends out signals to every tissue in the body. So you're not just pinpointing a therapy on one particular tissue, you're encouraging the tissue to work better itself. And that's why appetites are improved, because metabolism is increased. Muscle tone improves because muscle cells respond better to exercise and then regenerate faster at nighttime. And we've heard interesting feedback on wound healing, which is something I'd love to be able to do a very large study on. But as you had mentioned in our webinar, Sam, the types of injuries picked up by sport horses, no two are ever the same. They're very different. So to find a good group to evaluate this, but we've heard a lot about healing and skin in particular, where there's skin issues, where there's behavior issues. But we've come across vets who've reported soft tissue injuries that heal a lot faster than they imagined. And there wasn't any treatment given. They were just resting under the lights. So it's very powerful, light is.
It's amazing. Honestly, I find it absolutely fascinating. I kind of want to go and live in one of Sam's stables myself, to be honest. It sounds heaven.
I have light envy. So actually, even from where I'm in the kitchen now, and I look out on the yard, and you can see you can see the kind of the light coming out of the stables shining onto the yard. And particularly at this time of year, I definitely have light envy, because I look out at one side of the office or the kitchen and it's all kind of dark and gloomy. And then I can see that the horses are getting that extra minute every day. They've got red now, but even, in the morning time, that's stretching out. And it's just such a long winter for us, and such a long time, you know, to be going from it can be seriously dark and gloomy at kind of 4:30 in the depths of winter, and then again, you know, even at 8 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that. Like I'm trying to get going at 7:30, and that's only just starting to be possible now to have enough light to get outside at that time of the year. But even just the gloomy days, the cloudy days, I'm looking out. God, these guys are so lucky to have
just
that
going to go and
energy.
check on the horses, Sparks. Okay, let's go for some more questions coming in. Andy Bryan says, how long would you recommend the mask to be removed in a 12-month period, Barbara?
That's a very good question. It really depends on what animal we're talking about. So for breeding stock, which Andy, I'm not sure, but for breeding stock, they need to see a winter. So horses are long day breeders, and they respond best to artificial light after they've seen a short winter day. So that's why we don't start light treatment on our breeding stock or stallions until around the 1st of December. So it's really important in October, November that they get to see a winter. Similarly, when you're using lighting for things like coat condition, where you'd like to keep a slick coat through many months of the year, you can't keep the light on the same time all year round, because the horse has a seasonal rhythm, and eventually they'll blow their coat. And what's nice is you can decide when to give them their winter by allowing them have a break from light for 6 to 8 weeks. Andy, is usually optimum, an 8-week kind of winter, and then they'll respond better to light again. And it's just choosing the time where you're okay with letting them grow a little bit of a coat and just giving them time off and letting them have a winter time. So yeah, and the other thing about the stable lights is they come with lots of programs you can choose from, and one of the main programs that a lot of our sport horse riders use is the Circa annual program, where there's a winter already programmed in there, and the day length changes automatically throughout the year, so you don't have to mess with it. Like at the moment, Sam was saying he's seeing that the red lights are coming on later and later each night because it's adjusting by 5 minutes a day and giving the animal 5 minutes longer day. So it's getting longer than natural day length. So it's bringing spring forward, but it's doing it in a gradual process, and it giving them a longer summer and then a gradual autumn and a short winter is what we're doing with the lighting. So yes, it is good to remove the mask for 6 to 8 weeks at a time of year that suits your schedule, preferably one that kind of lines up with the shorter days of the year wherever you're based.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, a few more questions coming in. Keep them coming. If you've got any, they can be anything you like. Send them in. We'll get through as many as we can. Tammy says, does it ever have any long-term effects on the vision?
I'll take that one. I guess it's aimed at me. So this is something we get a lot because there's a lot of bad publicity out there about blue light, because there are some human studies where you give really high intensity, very blue light for long periods show that it could cause macular degeneration. The light that we use in our masks is turquoise light. We call it blue because it looks blue and it's easier, but it's not at the wavelength that's associated with retinal damage. And it's also, okay, first of all, when we were developing the mask, we had to have veterinary studies where the eyes were examined. Now, they were examined after 2 seasons, but long-term effects, as many of the vets told us, were so very unlikely, and they have never been reported. And that's because all we're doing is giving a really low intensity. So if you think about daylight on a sunny day, the light is 50,000 lux. So lux is how we measure light. It's really bright. You can imagine you want to wear sunglasses. Well, what we're taking is 50 lux. It's 1,000 times less. And instead of giving white light, which is made up of all the colors, we just get rid of the other colors that aren't necessary. They're needed for vision, but they're not necessary for stimulating the cells that control circadian rhythm. And we just give a very low portion of blue light. So the blue light, it's a lot less than having a long summer's day. It's a lot less intense on the horse's eye because we're just giving blue light. So it's really, if you look at a light mask that's on during daytime, you can't see the light because it's so low. So it's just like the way a candle looks bright in a dark room. It might appear that it's bright, but to the eye, it's much lower intensity than they would be used to be seeing even on a cloudy day. So there's no evidence and no suggestion that there would ever be long-term eye damage because it's so soft.
So soft. There we go, Tammy.
His phone is brighter, and you look at that for how many hours a day?
We don't want to add that up, probably. Okay, let's go through a couple more of those that were sent in prior to recording this. Let's go to this. This is quite interesting. We've kind of touched upon stable lights. Will other lights in the barn negate the effectiveness of a stable light or mask, Barbara?
With regard to the stable light, the only way they would impact it is if you had a bright white light somewhere else in the barn that we were putting on and off with when the red light was on, if there was overflow. It's fine if you have a feed room or a tack room where you go in and you close the door and you use that light, as long as it doesn't just flow into the horse's stable. So that's not a problem. Similarly with the mask, after 11 o'clock, it's best that you don't use white light. I mean, 1 or 2 times a week when you accidentally turn on a light is not going to be the end of the world. But the idea is to try and replicate what a horse out in the wild in a grazing pasture environment is used to seeing, because that's how their body evolved. And its dawn happens at around the same time every day. You have blue enriched natural daylight. Dusk happens at approximately the same time, and then there's darkness or moonlight at night, or where we want to be able to interact with them, there's red light. So when you're looking at your barn, and some people kind of go, I'd like to try some, but I don't want to put in a whole 24 stall barn full of lights for those lucky people who have massive stables, but they might try 4 or 5. And what we'd always recommend is choose one corner of the barn where the light from the other stables isn't going to impact it. And you will very quickly see the difference in the animals under the new lights compared to the older lights.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Actually, that kind of leads on to how easy, Sam, are they to install in an existing barn? I know you've put them in to your facility. How did you find that process? Oh.
Now I'm talking on mute. No, it was very simple, Nicole, very straightforward. I nearly feel like I'm not an electrician, but I feel like I could have done it myself. I've had actually 2, because I've been, putting them in different periods as well. We put them in last year, and then I'm putting in more. I will eventually. I'll have the whole place, with them, because it's such a good investment as well. Like it's just from running any kind of business, like to be able to invest in something that's going to be there for years and years, and yet you're getting daily benefits from it, and the control point of view, particularly with all of the, as an event writer, the Circa annual program is so easy because I literally do not have to touch it. It's great. This time last year we were aiming for Portugal, so we just at one point, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head whether it was around I think the end of December, where we just started to bring it. We changed the date, I think, to just try and accelerate everything a little bit, because I wanted them peaked for the end of March time. So we were just trying to bring that spring forward even a little faster than what it's doing anyway. And we'd made that adjustment as well for the previous winter as well. We made sure that they got their downtime a little bit earlier as well. But very easy to do. I mean, that was literally one change. So the controller is very easy to work, very easy to install, and then it's there. It's this asset that you have, and electricity wise, there's no surprises on your bill. They're actually much more efficient than most lights to run. And then on a bright sunny day, they react like the stable lights. If you've got skylights and if you've got quite well lit stables for, in summertime, they're not they don't need as much energy. They're very smart lights. They're not beaming out as much. So from a business point of view and an efficiency point of view, and certainly from an ease of use point of view, that's why I love the stable lights, and I'm using them more and more. Like we have the masks for some of the mares and things like that, but we will convert the whole place, even my youngsters in barns and things like the back. I would say in a year's time there'll be no light in Ballybolger that isn't an Equilume light.
It's good to know though that it isn't going to all of a sudden ramp people's electricity bills up, because that could be a common misconception, and it's simply not the case. Okay, we're going to do our last couple of questions. So if you've got anything that you would like to ask Barbara or Sam, then now is your chance to send them in. We're going to come to this one. So I've read that lots of showing people use Equilume for coat condition. Have you noticed any effect on coats or having to clip less? Sam, I'll come to you on that. I know Philip mentioned coat condition, and he's certainly noticed something like that. What's your experience with it?
Yeah, the initial, like the coat quality and the shine off the coat, that's quite a short term gain. You know, we saw that quite quickly. And then, okay, Ireland being so cold in their first season, in their first winter, because we put the lights in wintertime, it didn't make a difference to how much we were. Well, they only really get clipped ones anyway. But the brightness of that coat came through really quickly. But by the time they'd been under the lights for the year, we were starting to panic actually nearly that with the wintering, that we needed their winter coat to come through. I couldn't believe, because they did their last event kind of around the end of September, and then they're starting to go out a lot more. You know, they're on and off the walker. We're just not quite, so you get more lax with your rugging and stuff like that. You know, you're kind of letting the coat naturally come through, and they would usually be really woolly by the middle of October, end of October, having finished all their competing and things like that, and being out quite a lot. And like literally at the end of October, when it was freezing cold here, these guys they had their summer coats. But then it came through November, December, when they got onto their winter program, they did go woolly. But no, it definitely affected it. If I had been competing in October, been going to an event like Po, we wouldn't have clipped them, you know, and that would be completely unheard of for us. You know, like I know some people have to clip for September events, and we would do for October. So yeah.
That's really good to hear. Okay, I'm just going to come for one last question. Just take this one away. And it is from Claire Mellon, who's just joined us. Hi, Claire. Thanks for joining us. Probably a silly question is coming in late, but portable versions for traveling away at shows, etc. We've obviously just been talking about the barn lights and that sort of infrastructure at home, Barbara, but the light masks as well are totally portable and totally possible for sort of people trying it.
The Cashel light mask is the way to go, because that's bringing that blue enriched light with the horse whenever they go, and it gives them 15 hours of light per day, and they travel really well with it. So that's kind of our portable version.
Portable version. Okie dokie. One last question. Andrew Boyd. Andrew, are there any studies on riders have experienced reduced recovery time in soft tissue injuries or larger muscle groups, and then the same horses having a reduced likelihood of the injury reoccurring? Barbara.
I would love if we had those studies. No, Andrew, and I can only report on the subjective feedback from clients who will have one or two horses where they notice injuries that healed a lot faster, and that they've stayed injury free for longer. But I can't back that with scientific study, and I will hopefully be able to one day. But why not pass this to Sam? Because Sam, I think you had a bit of experience, because you'd be more believable because you've seen it in a horse. So I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, we had a soft tissue injury, and as I said, it was kind of nearly by chance, because we were nearly going to sacrifice him and kind of put him out. We knew he was going to be on the easy list for a good while, and we were thinking we might jiggle around, but no, he stayed under the lights. And when we did that first scan that should be showing that things are healing, but we're only sort of 50% of the way there, it was a case of double checking, looking at both legs, looking at previous scans, going, what has happened here? The vet was asking, I won't be offended, but have you used another vet to try and do something? Because I would just be interested in what you've done. And there's always variance around, exactly how long it takes. But to have had one horse with one soft tissue injury under lights, and for him to be an outlier in terms of, what the vet is saying for recovery time, to say that this is repairing significantly faster, is really cool. And again, because it makes sense, we're talking about the body's ability to heal. Like, that's why we use hot and cold therapy and vibration. We're just trying to stimulate the body to go and heal that area, to go and do its job. So it makes sense that the light would do it. I would love to kind of persist with that a little bit more, because I think that our management of injuries is one of the biggest inefficiencies in the game. And then again, just in the management of a horse day to day in terms of injury prevention, I think if a horse has some kind of disposition to getting injured, and you have to ask, why did they get injured in the first place? But there are some injuries that are just a case of a horse having a high workload, and basically, as the work is stacking up, work is stress on the body, and then that stress, it needs to recover, and it needs to kind of rest from that and recover. And that's kind of what we're doing with the light as well, that we're trying to maximize the body, be able to give a really good effort in training, really good session, really intense session, work the body. Then we want them to really rest. And all athletes now, rugby players, footballers, are all talking about active recovery, the quality of your sleep, the quality of your nutrition, the quality of everything around making sure that recovery is really good. So I think it could help in just day-to-day niggles and things like that. And of course, lots of little niggles can end up to being the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you get a much bigger injury and stuff. So I think that in the space of injury, these the Equilume products are going to have a big role to play, to be honest. So definitely watching that space for more studies. But our feedback and our experience so far has been really positive.
And they know this in the human world. And we talked about it a little bit on the webinar, that there's so many studies now on human recovery post-surgery under correct lighting. I mean, where circadian lighting has been introduced to hospitals that allow patients to rest at night, where the red light comes on, and giving them more blue enriched light by day to get their body cells generating the rhythm. And it's the rhythm of life that allows cells to divide and recover. And they're showing it in humans. So we're going to be ahead of the game with horses by having a lot more horses recovering better before we look after ourselves. Because, you go into your own house and you'll do silly things with lights, and you'll look at your Facebook feed until, just before you go to sleep, and wonder why you won't sleep. So, but we'll try to look after our horses a little better.
There you go, Andrew. Hopefully that answered your question. I think that is all we are going to have time for, but a massive thank you to everybody that has tuned in. A big thank you, Barbara, Sam, to Philip Dutton, who joined us a little bit earlier as well. And if you are interested in finding out more, then do go to equilume.com to watch a webinar in full, and it will have loads more information, loads more of the scientific background on there. Philip, Liz, and Sam are all talking about their experiences in a little bit more detail, and some sort of specific case studies as well. So do go and take a look, equilume.com. And as always, if you've got any questions, get in touch with the Equilume team, info@equilume.com, if you want to email them directly. But a big thank you, Barbara, Sam. If you're watching this back, then we hope you've enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more coming soon. But a big thank you for watching.